Welcome to Wayward Writers. I'm senior literary agent and author Heather Cashman.
I'm author and writing coach Stephanie Bearce.
And I'm author and writing coach Nicki Jacobsmeyer.
Our mission is to nurture and enrich established writers throughout their publishing journeys.
We welcome all genres, age groups, and publishing paths through video podcasts, online webinars, in-person retreats, and more.
We're here to help you conquer your path.
Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you with us today. We are excited to have Leslie J. Wyatt with us. Stephanie, will you tell us all about Leslie?
I will. I have to admit that I've known Leslie for a few years and enjoy her company. So that's just one big bonus. But also, Leslie has been head over heels in a great romance with words for nearly 30 years, in addition to 3 romance titles and more pending with Sibylline Press and Sibylline Digital First. She's published a number of middle grade novels and more than 800 articles and stories in magazines, anthologies, websites, and textbooks. She's also a prolific reader and speaker at literature festivals, libraries, and book signings. Welcome, Leslie. We're so excited to have you here and talk about your writing process.
Yeah.
So you've been in love with words for nearly 30 years. What first sparked your passion for writing?
Yes, words for nearly 65, I will say. But what first sparked my passion for writing was my mom, because when I want to say, just learning to read, because we would get the Humpty Dumpty magazine. We lived in rural Utah and lived for that monthly magazine. And she started writing stories for it. I don't know that she ever got published, but I was awestruck that my own mother was writing stories. And I can remember some of the plots to this day because I thought they were so fun. One was about a dog who kept a little Chihuahua dog to wake him up so he could do his job. So the fact that my mom was doing that, had been back in the 60s, just made me know that I could do that if I wanted to. So roll forward. When my kids were little, I decided I would start writing books because you're reading them, all these books from the library, and I just thought, I could do this. So I did.
I love that. That's really great.
And it sounds like you started maybe writing picture books, but is that true? Did you start with picture books?
No, actually, I started with middle grade, and that's kind of where I stuck. I like to joke, I think I got arrested in middle grade. My interior person is a lot of a middle grader, so it just made sense to me. And some of my kids were that age at the same time, but that psyche, it just made sense to me and writing for them. So I've maybe gotten toward the edge of YA, but not enough that it would be in that category.
What excites you about writing across these multiple genres and articles and things like that?
Good question. I'm not sure I'd say excites. More a matter of economics. I was trying to make some money, supplement the budget. And so I started writing besides children's lit, which was great. And periodically I got things published, but I started writing for magazines for adults. Originally, I had taken a course from Institute of Children's Literature, which I loved. And they had, at that time, a publication called Children's Writer that came out every month. And I started writing for that. So craft articles and things like that. That was super fun. And then I segued into writing for like hobby farms, Cat Fancy, things like that, while I was still submitting to children's magazines and working on books. So like Cricket and Highlights, everything.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. When you're working to actually be a working writer, you got to go and do whatever you need to do. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it's like you write where they pay.
That's exactly it. And I will say that some kinds of writing is more fun for me. Like I love to write fiction. I love to write book-length fiction because it gives you time to really develop the characters and the plot and stuff. But at at the end of the day, the research articles sell, and there's a real quick turnaround on articles compared to books. That's a long
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's also a motivator there.
And it's nice to have the affirmation or positive feedback of actually getting something published that small articles allows you to do a lot more regularly.
It's so true. It's so true. Because you can wait for months and months to hear back on whether your book, whether they want to see the rest of your book or they want whatever.
Yep.
Whereas articles, especially nowadays with digital submissions and stuff, you can get a pretty fast return.
Yeah. And actually hearing back is a lovely thing too, isn't it?
It is.
So when you're writing across genres and you have lots of ideas, how do you decide which idea is going to fit in which age group?
Yeah, so that would mostly fit in the fiction category for me.
Right.
So I usually look at the theme that I want to draw out of the story. Not that themes for middle graders are different in a way than themes for adults, but where the actual point I want to make in that is that something that kids will resonate with. If it is, then I might gear the story for them and then just keep the content appropriate for them. If it's something maybe kids aren't even thinking about yet, or they're thinking about in pretty elementary terms, and I want to make a deeper point, then I'll gear it more for adults.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the same is true for nonfiction too, where like everyone knows about math, but you're going to talk about math differently with a first grader than you are with a college student or an adult.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think nonfiction is the same that way.
And the research that is required takes it a little bit different path depending on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, adults are going to want all the proofs and everything, which the magazine publishers may want the proofs, but how you'd write the article, they don't really care. Dr. So-and-so said such and such. But adults will like to know that it is quoted by somebody.
And when you write adult, especially nonfiction, you get to include all the weird and racy stuff too. So there's so many things that when I'm researching nonfiction for kids, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, I cannot put that in this.
Yeah, you've actually had so much more experience on that than me. You've done so much on that.
But it's fun. It's fun that you can do different levels too. So
yes.
Cool.
So you mentioned that you start with theme, or maybe you don't start with theme. Are you a plotter? Do you just write? Are you an exploratory writer? Are you in between?
Good question. I was sort of all over the place. I was like having all these ideas, and then I was writing on spec. And then I'd find some place to send it, sort of thing. And then as time went by, I honed in on the publications I wanted to send to, and then I started really targeting their style, their subjects, and so on. A little more planning. I will say that the middle grade books that I've written, which are historical fiction, of course, they took a lot of research, but they came out of just my own fascination. I think I was less about planning then and more about just like diving in and seeing where things go because I had a basic idea of where I wanted to end up. Nowadays, I definitely am leaning a little more to the planning stage, not hard outlines and such, but I've discovered a book I really appreciate in between. It's called Blueprint for a Book by Jenny Nash.
I've read that one.
Old.
So that works well for you?
It does. I think the thing that I really is it allows me to get my head wrapped around the story I'm telling and the characters. Characters are pretty easy for me, but the actual story I want to tell, because plotting can be difficult for me. I think I always want to resolve conflict. And that doesn't work so well when you're trying to make a plot last to the end. Being able to out the beats, the scenes and stuff, that helps me. I might do 5 lines per scene, but at least I know which scenes follow which. I might note cards and rearrange them a little bit, but mostly I do it on the computer.
Very cool.
Okay. So I'm very interested in this because I've read both your middle grade and your adult fiction, and you definitely shift your voice. You have a middle grade voice when you write middle grade, and your others are adult. And I think so many authors have difficulty having that age span. How do you do that? How do you shift your voice and tone so much?
Yes, I referenced earlier my inner middle grader. I really try
Uh-huh.
to channel that when I'm writing for kids and remembering my kids at that age and just really aiming for that readership. It seems then it lets the voice out in that age. For adults, I just kind of channel myself where I'm at and try to make it not too folksy. It can, on occasion, sound really educated, but in my everyday life, I'm just a normal person. So I try to hit that somewhere in there. And then I think my biggest challenge right now, because I'm turning out a lot of books, which is super fun, is making sure that each character has their own voice. Like the heroine in one doesn't sound like the next one. Oh, let's just switch the title and the setting. We got the same person. I don't like that when authors do that. So I'm having to really watch that. And part of how I'm doing that, it's a new thing because writing romance is a new thing for me. Relatively, I've been at it like a year and a half now. But I hit on this thought, which I then wrote an article about because that's how we do it, right?
Yes.
About using personality systems to map out characters. And so, like the Enneagram, I don't know if you're familiar
Yep.
with that, or
Yes.
Myers-Briggs or DISC test or whatever, using that and making the best pairing of because in romance you have two protagonists, so you have to get them both working, and then staying, I think I work really hard to stay within that personality. So if I chose, say, I'm working on right now, one of the characters is very precise, academic, analytical. So his voice has to be that. It's like his sentences are more cut and dried, doesn't dig into the emotions a whole lot, that type of thing. So I would say it's kind of a work in progress with me, but I do work on it.
That's cool. One of the things that I always recommend to my clients when they have trouble with this is, like you were saying, let's say your protagonist is an engineer, then go on YouTube and watch engineering videos. Find someone who is got an engineering channel, and the way he speaks, make him your protagonist, and just go listen to a few hours of his voice.
A good idea.
Yourself. I can see when people that know me read my books, they're like, "Oh, that came straight from you," or from your history, or from your sister, or whatever. But I do that all the time because then they do start to feel the same. So I love that suggestion.
Thanks.
And that's accessible for anyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, everybody. Or same thing with TikTok, because people put out these videos and there's literally hours of them talking.
That's true.
So,
That's
you know.
true.
That's a good idea.
Everybody's a little different.
Yeah, and you can write down the words that they use, you can write down their sentences, and I think too it really helps dialogue because we speak differently than we actually would write the rest of the prose on the page or whatever.
Yes. No, that's a wonderful idea. Like that.
Okay, you mentioned just a little bit ago that you're into romance. So what drew you to romance in particular, and how does that writing differ from your other writing?
Yeah. Probably about 2 years ago. I'm working on this book, which I've had in progress. It's really to the OCD nitpicking editing part, and I just can't seem to cut it loose. It's a middle grade fantasy, which I love, but I was pretty bogged down with it. Not sure if it was ready or if I should just go through it again, whatever. And my daughter, who's also a writer, my oldest daughter, she said, "Mom, why don't you just try a different genre for a while? Just give yourself a break. You can come back to that whenever, but what if I gave you some prompts?" So she gave me a bunch of writing prompts, like in triplets. And the one that caught my eye had the color blue and something, I can't even remember the other two, but somehow I just thought, what if I wrote a romance? Because I wrote for adults, and then I thought, this adults, I'm kind of low drama. I don't really like to create drama or live through it. romance. This could work. And so I just started, and it was so much fun. Mostly because it just felt, what is it when you're stream of thought? It just felt like stream of thought. I'm just kind of coming up with these ideas and writing them down. And I decided to do it contemporary, so I didn't have to do any research, because research, I love research. I love learning about this stuff, but as you know, Stephanie, it slows you down from the actual writing. Yeah, so that's how I got into it. And once I got into it, at this point, I feel almost guilty that it's so much fun. Should I be having this much fun writing? Because
Yes.
it's basically what I want to do all day instead of whatever else there is that I need to do. It's like, can I steal another hour here or there? So,
I love it that you've fallen in love with writing again, and it's because of romance. I think that's
yeah,
so cool.
it is so cool. And I think that one of the things that's come out of it is, of course, we're always working through our own mind and our own emotions as we do this. But I think one of the things I've realized is that I love the fact that the predictability of a romance. The whole thing of a romance is, if you don't have a happily ever after, you don't have a romance. You might have some other kind of story, but it's not a romance. And something about just making happily ever afters just is fun to me. I know the guy will go through all
Yeah.
the trenches and everything, but that they get to end up there. I'm like, isn't that what we're all wanting to do in our lives?
Yes.
Really want the San Francisco to fall off into the ocean or aliens to invade, even though we watch those movies. No, we just want everybody we love to be happy, and we want to be happy too. So I love it. I love being able to bring that kind of creative, an immersive world where people can think, oh, and I like to put, and this is, I did in my kids' books too. I really like to share any tools that I've found that help get through the difficult parts of life, ways to deal with situations or difficult relationships. And so I like to embed those in there, maybe work on a theme or whatever. So it's super fun for me to do that in this realm, because my protagonists I'm writing about are in their 60s, and that's just a very underserved demographic in
Oh, yeah.
romances. They're all,
Absolutely.
most of them are about people in their 20s and 30s, and their issues are totally different. Love our kids, but as Stephanie was saying, we're no longer having kids. So those issues have gone away, but we have other ones. And so I just
Yeah.
love writing about the contemporary world right now. And our demographic is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And two are out right now. I read both of
Mhm.
them. I told her though on one of them, one of the husbands leaves his wife for Peru, and I had to kill him. But she's much nicer. That's why she's writing
Throw them off
romance.
down there.
So it's delightful though. But it's real problems. Not midlife, it's 60 life crisis. And that happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
it
There's an
does.
audience for that.
Oh,
I'm actually looking for older protagonists and stories because I've had several editors lately.
Really? Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just talking about that to my daughter, the one that gave me the prompt, because she's now 40, and she says, "Hey, I think I'm going to write for my age group, because protagonists in the 40s and 50s, because we just are dealing with different things than we were 10 years ago, 15
oh
years
my,
ago."
yeah.
I think that's so an
Everybody
under
is.
demographic. And
Mhm.
what I've really seen, and I'm not the widest read person, didn't read too much romance until I started writing it. But what I've seen is, a lot of times, if there's an older protagonist in their 40s and above, definitely 60s and above, the people that are writing it don't really know what it's like. So it doesn't really ring true. It doesn't really
Yeah.
feel like they know what they're doing. They're doing their best, but they don't know. And so it's really super fun to actually know and be able to write what I know. We always say that. And so, yeah.
I would imagine it does make it a bit easier if you're writing from your own background. So that is a question here. Are your romantic storylines ever inspired by real life or are they entirely fictional?
Yeah. Okay. So, as when you write, you're always bringing yourself to the page in some way, even
Mhm.
if it's just because I'm more familiar with growing up on a farm or doing this or that than I am growing up in a city, which I didn't do. But my storylines themselves thus far have been totally fictional. I'm working on one right now, though, that is super fun. That actually had a prompt from real life because I was at a chocolate festival here last fall, and one of the couples, it's a couple from Arizona, they were just so cute together. And I just thought, I asked them, how did you get started in chocolate? And it turned out they met through a chocolate competition. And I thought, oh, that is a romance. So I'm writing that.
There you
And
go. That
right
sounds
now,
fun.
I'm using, in 2022, my husband and I went on a coffee sourcing trip in Peru. So I'm actually literally retracing our actual journey as far as geographical location and site settings with that trip, but the story totally didn't happen. And yet pieces are embedded, like the road in Peru. Oh my word.
Oh, yes. The God Road and
I
his
know,
brother.
exactly. But I really, as far as characters, I really don't, I make those up. I really stay away from using real people, or even, it's always going to be a composite, but I steer away from using real people. And probably for the same reason, real stories, because I don't want somebody to read it and say, hey, I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate what you did there. I know you're talking about me, and maybe somebody will, but it will be purely accidental. I can really just say that.
That's great.
All right. You have been publishing for quite a while now and in so many different areas. What is the biggest shift that you've seen in your career?
I was thinking about that. I would say self-publishing, because when I
Yeah.
started, that was still very much, that's not professional or whatever. And I haven't done it myself. I haven't delved into it, but it seems like the quality has gone up and the ability to do that. So I think that's a huge shift in even viewpoint toward it. I mean, there's still
Yes.
some poorly edited stuff out there, we know, but there's also some good stuff. The
Yeah, there
other
is.
one, I think, is the shift from snail mail to digital. So you could no more sending off your manuscripts with an SASE, waiting to get it back or not. No more writing for writers' guidelines. Just find it on the web. We can submit by email. And in the same way, then for articles and such like that, to a digital online format. Those are, yeah, night and day from just the print that used to be, which I kind of
Yeah.
miss. But
I do want to know. So tell us a little bit about Sibylline Press, because when I was looking up your books and ordering them, I loved their mission and that they really want to publish stories for people who are in our age group. And that's unique. What else can you tell us about this publishing company that you're working with?
And
yes,
can you specify the age group for us that don't know?
50 and above. They only publish works by women 50 and above.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay. Great.
yeah, I came upon them through my writer daughter. I tell you what they do to up the girl. I don't know, but she sent me an article there when they were launching, and I was just starting that first romance, and so I thought, oh, this is where I'm going to send it. So then when I got to that point, I contacted them, and they super responsive. I really like them. And so since I've gotten two published so far and others in the works, they're great, very professional, because their founders, Julia Park Tracy, Vicky Diarman, they are co-founders, publisher, and Julia is now the acquisitions editor on it. They are themselves above 50, and they've been working in publishing for decades. In fact, Vicky just published her almost true memoir of working in the Bay Area in publishing called Foghorn. And she's worked in the trade book industry. So all that background, each of them a lot of background. I think Julia was a journalist and worked also in publishing. So they bring all that, and I feel like what they created in digital Sibylline Press is a real agile version of publishing that bypasses a lot of the clunkiness of the big ones, but has all the, like, the ins, because they work with the trade industry. A couple of my middle grade books I published with a smaller publisher didn't know enough to find out whether they sold through the trade. They don't, and therefore bookstores can't get the books on wholesale, which is a problem. So Sibylline does. They distribute through the different trade things. They do all the trade shows, they submit for rewards, and awards, and they do book signing. One of the things that's different about them, though, it's a model that I think is becoming more common but fairly rare, is that authors have a market share. So they contribute percent of, depending on whether you're going digital or traditional, that will differ, but 25% of the marketing budget, the authors contribute, and then they get that back at 50% royalty until it's paid back. So it's really quite a good deal. But I know a lot of people they're like, why should I pay them to sell my book? But if you're like me who hates marketing, to me, I would pay somebody, a couple $1,000s to do my marketing for me, because they have the whole network and whatever. And they also put in 75%. So it really, I feel like they bring the authors into the process, and they give us all the resources that we need to do the promotion, all the support. They have a great staff, great support, and really are quite engaged. And another thing I love about the way they do it is they keep the authors informed. So, an email every week that goes to the author portal that keeps you up on all the news that is pertaining to that week that you might need to know. So there's just a lot of things I think they're doing right. And their books are winning awards. They've got a great cover artist crew. And yeah, I'm really quite enamored of them.
I love your covers. I think they're spot on.
Right.
They really look good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, a lot of people who want more of that control and less support, they go the self-publishing route. And then there's people who want all the support, right? And they don't want to put any money in, and they go the trade route. But this sounds like they help you essentially produce a really quality book that gets you into that wholesale distribution market with all the other trade publishers. But at the same time, you do invest in the marketing side of things a little bit, which you do that anyway.
Yeah, because if you don't, you just don't even rise above the middle line there, because there was definitely an expectation, which I did, to be setting up events, to be doing book signings, to be promoting on the side. So the difference being, there's a lot more support and a lot more ideas that are coming our way to help that happen. A lot more podcasts, and like they'll send a list of shows coming up, ones that they're going to be at and ones that the authors could be at, just local events for each author. It's just great. It really is good. One more thing about Sibylline that I like.
Yes, please do.
It's about their publishing women over 50, because face it, women are half the population, and then you cut out everybody under 50, and you've actually not competing with the Wunderkind and the Pulitzer Prize winners.
I'm so glad it's working out for you. I love it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wayward Writers.
Let's connect. Find us at waywardwriters.com, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
See you next time. Conquer your path.